Right, next we're going to be looking at meeting traffic. Okay, now a meeting situation is when we're on a road and there's parked cars either to the left or to the right that are stationary. Okay, so parked at the side of the road. Okay, now most residential places that you'll be driving, particularly on your driving test, you will be involved in meeting situations. There is the potential of meeting an oncoming vehicle. Okay, so if you imagine that there's a stationary vehicle, okay, there's nobody in it and it's parked right next to the curb on the left hand side. Now, if the obstruction is on our side, okay, so for instance that parked car may be a skip or something along those lines, the onus of responsibility is on us to wait for the traffic that's on the other side of the road. Okay, so you work out who has priority based on which side of the road the restriction is on. So if the restriction is on the left, okay, then we would have to wait. If the restriction is on the right, okay, then they would have to wait. Alright, and again the onus of responsibility is on us to make sure that we understand what's going on. Okay, so again, if there's a stationary vehicle on the right hand side, okay, the restriction blocks the oncoming vehicle, so again we would have priority, okay, and then obviously the other vehicle would need to wait for us. Now there is a problem when it comes to priority, because you can never assume that you have priority. So how do you work out who has priority? Well, it's really simple, to be fair. What you need to do is work out what kind of speed the other person is doing. If they look like they're slowing down, then they're likely to be giving you priority. Okay, if they keep their road position over towards the left hand side of the curb, again what they're likely to be doing is giving you priority. Okay, so when we're in the car we'll be able to sort of have a bit of a discussion and work out kind of who has priority. The issues that we have with the issue of priority, okay, is if you don't work it out in good time, what you tend to do is you commit yourself to overtake the stationary vehicle that's on the left hand side, just at the same time that the vehicle on the right hand side of the road coming towards us also commits to go forwards, and then we have a situation of we meet in the middle, okay, and that's referred to as barging. Okay, you don't really want to be barging your way through. The reality is if you do start barging your way through, potentially we're going to get into a situation that we just won't be able to go. We'll be really close to the stationary vehicle to the left, and we'll also be really close to the vehicle coming towards us on the right. Neither one of those are very good situations. Now, the other issue when it comes to priority is when there's stationary vehicles on both sides of the road. Okay, so let's say for example we're driving along a road and on the left hand side on our side is a stationary vehicle, and on the right hand side of the road at the same place, okay, there is also a stationary vehicle on the right hand side. So again, how do we work out who has priority? Well, we do it on exactly the same basis again. We work out who has the increased amounts of speed or who's decreasing their speed, who keeps their road position over towards the left and who keeps their road position over to the right. The problem is with the stationary vehicles on both sides of the road, nobody has priority. So we need to try and work it out amongst ourselves. Now it's referred to as yielding, okay? So if we were to come off the gas pedal, and before we come off the gas pedal we would use the mirror signal manoeuvre routine, so centre mirror, right mirror, coming off the gas pedal in good time to the mouth of the junction, to the parked cars. What we can actually do is try and change our speed and change our road position before we get to the stationary vehicle. That gives the intention to the other person that we are yielding. Okay. Now with that, what we would do is not flash our lights or wave at them or anything along those lines, but just by changing our road position and by changing our speeds, we would communicate to the other vehicle on the other side of the road that it is our intentions to let them go first. Okay. One of the problems about driving in a driving school car is, well, obviously it's got L plates on. People aren't the most patient people when it comes to working with learners, okay, and what they tend to do is want to go first. Okay, so that's not necessarily the right thing or the wrong thing, but that does tend to be how it happens. Okay, so like I say, if we were to slow down in good time, okay, not necessarily come to a stop, but if we give the opportunity to come through, okay, it just means that we avoid a conflict situation, and the principle is basically it's better to avoid things by dealing with them further away. Okay, so if you can see in good time that there's a stationary vehicle on our side of the road and a stationary vehicle on the other side of the road, again, if we just do everything in good time, as long as we don't inconvenience anybody behind us, we do avoid potentially a more difficult situation. Okay. The last thing I want to talk then about when it comes to this priority thing and overtaking stationary vehicles to the left, we've talked about the use of mirror signal manoeuvre, okay, but it's the road position that we maintain, okay. Now, as we head towards a stationary vehicle, if it's on our left-hand side, we don't want to get too close behind the stationary vehicle. Okay, the reason for that is that it restricts our observation. Okay, it also gives the information to the other person that potentially we're parking. Okay, and then the last thing, which is the hardest thing, is it makes our ability to control the car that much worse. Okay, it means that we have to drive slower. It also means we have to steer more, and sometimes, particularly when we're kind of getting our head around it, our steering becomes very funky, particularly when we're going on the gas pedal a little bit too soon. So the idea is to try and really avoid dealing with all those kind of situations. So again, by slowing down in good time, by staying away from the back of the car, it allows us more space and again better car control. Because the other issue we've got is if that's the stationary vehicle and we're parked really close behind it, when we actually turn to come out past it, what we might actually do is get really close before we actually get out, and that's referred to as shaving. Okay, what we don't want to do is get really close to that stationary vehicle. If you imagine there's a safety bubble of about a metre, about a door's width all the way around that vehicle, we do not under any circumstances get any closer to that stationary vehicle than a metre. Okay, now the only exception to that is when the road is very, very narrow, okay, and there's a stationary vehicle on the left and at the same time a stationary vehicle on the right. It's safe to go through, but you can't be a metre away from the vehicle on this side, because the vehicle that's on this side you're then too close. So what you have to do is go in between, and you basically, it's called splitting the difference. Okay, so you would maintain the same distance to the left as the same distance to the right. Okay, and again we'll be giving you some help with that. Please make sure that you do not under any circumstances get really close to those stationary vehicles or go barging your way through. If you're not sure who has priority, we need to discuss it prior to actually getting into that situation in the first place. If we don't, what actually happens is, like I say, we commit ourselves to overtake as the other person on the other side of the road commits themselves to overtake, and we end up having a head-on situation. Alright?